Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take the sources you've shared and, well, we dig in. We try to pull out the most insightful, surprising bits. And today, our mission is to journey into something pretty deep, the shifting sands of self, how memory constructs and deconstructs identity. Yeah, the sources give us this really powerful image. Picture yourself walking across a huge desert, okay? And the sand under your feet, it's never still, right? It's always moving, always reshaping itself with every step you take. And this isn't just, a nice visual, it's a metaphor for memory. It suggests that the very ground of who we think we are, our identity, well, it's constantly being remade.
It really is a perfect starting point because, it immediately challenges how we usually think about memory. Most people feel like memory is a recording, something fixed,
Yeah.
like a video you replay. But what we're going to explore is how memory doesn't just record you. It actively builds you, builds and rebuilds your identity, pretty much moment by moment. So yeah, we'll get into its reconstructive nature, how it works, and then we'll look at some really fascinating edge cases, situations where memory falters or breaks down. Because those moments really shine a light on what it means to have a self, or maybe what's left when memory isn't quite there.
Right. So let's start with this big question. It feels almost ancient, doesn't it? How does memory actually shape our, let's call it soul architecture? I mean, isn't it kind of astonishing that we are in so many ways made of memory, but then memory itself is always shifting, always changing. It's like our identity is this intricate tapestry, right? Every thread is a memory, but the tapestry itself is constantly being restitched. Maybe even the colors change right in front of us. Just take a second. I invite you to think of a childhood memory, something that really shaped you. Could be small, a little win, or maybe seeing someone be kind. Just hold that image.
That's a beautiful way to put it, soul architecture. And neuroscience, well, it absolutely backs this up, this idea of memory as a living story. So when you bring that childhood memory to mind, you're not just like opening a file from some vault in your brain. It's not a perfect video playback. Your brain is actually reassembling it. Right now, it's more like putting together a puzzle, and maybe some pieces are missing, or maybe they've warped a bit over time. And here's the kicker. Every single time you revisit a memory, you're not just remembering the past, you're actually reshaping it. And this isn't some weird glitch, it's how it's supposed to work. It's this constant, active process of creating who you are, whether you realize it or not. Every recall is a rewrite. Think of it less like opening a PDF, which is static, and more like editing a Google Doc. The past isn't fixed, it's dynamic.
Wow, okay. Editing a Google Doc versus opening a PDF. That's a really clear way to think about it. So let's go back to that childhood memory you were just holding. Maybe it was standing up to a bully. Maybe that felt scary, raw back then. But think about how you've told that story since, even just inside your own head. How might it have changed? That one moment, maybe terrifying at the time, could now be a cornerstone, your personal story of courage. You might actually see yourself now as the brave one, partly because of how you remember that. And just like that, a memory, maybe subtly tweaked over time, helps build who you are today.
Exactly. That internal reshaping, that narrative work, that's precisely what the evidence points to. It's the reason why I say two siblings can remember the exact same family holiday completely differently, and both feel their version is absolutely the truth. Or think about this. After a bad breakup, suddenly that relationship that felt perfect. Looking back, it might start to seem like it was just full of red flags you somehow ignored. Why? Because your emotional state right now, as you're remembering, heavily influences what details pop out, what you focus on, how you frame the whole thing. It's not just what happened, it's how you feel about it now that changes the memory itself.
Which leads us right into this kind of gentle paradox, doesn't it? Something the sources really highlight. If our memories are always being rewritten, if they can be flawed or we misremember bits, then the identity we build on them, is it still truly us? If memory is so fluid and our sense of self is woven from that fluid stuff, what part of you is actually constant, unchanging? It's a really interesting thing to just sit with. If your past isn't set in stone, what does that really imply about who you are right now? And identity doesn't just shift. Sometimes it feels like it splinters, doesn't it? Especially after really big, maybe traumatic experiences. The sources talk about this idea of fractured selves, which makes you wonder what parts of you maybe got left behind somewhere along the way. But the idea isn't that you're broken. It's more like when a self fractures, it leaves these sacred fragments, pieces that are waiting to be found again. It's almost like Shanasade. You're not trying to become someone totally new. You're remembering someone ancient, a deeper you that was always there. So trauma, in this view, it's not just a bad event. It's a deep disruption to your sense of continuity. It can lead to these lost selves, the inner child or parts we've pushed away. And the sources really stress the sacred role of grief in putting things back together, grieving what was lost so you can reclaim what's possible.
Yeah, from a brain perspective, trauma definitely causes major cognitive disruption. When your brain senses overwhelming danger, you get what's called an amygdala hijack. Basically, your brain's alarm system, the amygdala, just takes over. Rational thought kind of goes offline, fight or flight kicks in. And at the same time, you might get a hippocampal shutdown. Now, the hippocampus is key for making clear sequential memories, like this happened, then this, then that. So if it's offline, that explains why traumatic memories are often fragmented or feel frozen, time gets distorted, or why people experience dissociation, that feeling of being disconnected from your body or from reality itself. And dissociation, though it feels really weird, it's actually the brain's protective strategy. It's trying to cope. So these neurological responses, they directly mess with how memories get stored, or if they get stored properly. And over time, yeah, they absolutely shape your core beliefs about yourself and the world. It shows just how tangled up memory and self really are. Survival comes first for the brain.
And what I find really comforting, almost profound, in how the sources talk about this is the perspective they offer. It's like, you're not broken, you're protecting yourself. And wholeness isn't about reaching some kind of perfection, it's about reunion. Bringing those fractured pieces, those fragments back into connection, it really reframes the self. Not as something you have to constantly perform or perfect, but as a sanctuary, a place for integration, for safety.
Exactly. And knowing this opens the door to some really helpful, practical ways to heal, ways to reclaim those exiled parts of the self, like internal family systems, IFS therapy. It sees the mind as having different parts, like an inner critic, maybe a wounded child part, a part that tries to manage everything. And the whole idea is to meet these parts with compassion, understand their role, rather than just trying to get rid of them. It's about internal harmony. And then there's somatic healing that focuses on feeling before fixing. Yeah. It helps people process trauma that's literally stored in the body's sensations and tensions. It lets the body kind of finish interrupted protective responses, complete the cycle. And that can be a really powerful way to move from feeling, say, shame towards feeling worthy again, by literally shifting things in the body.
This whole journey into memory takes us to some really profound places. These edge cases, like, what if we lose our memories completely? Do we lose our essence, who we fundamentally are? The sources make you really think about this, especially when you hear stories about people with Alzheimer's or dementia. Their loved ones often say things like, she's still in there, or he's still himself somehow. Something intangible seems to remain, doesn't it? A presence, maybe a characteristic softness, just a sense of them. Even when the life story, the details are gone. So it forces the question, are we actually more than just the sum of our memories? Is there a self underneath the narrative, something that remains even when the story fades? Like a melody that still resonates even after the sheet music is lost.
Yeah, looking at neurological conditions like Alzheimer's or different types of amnesia, even severe chronic PTSD, it's incredibly revealing for exactly that reason. These conditions really highlight how complex and intertwined the self-memory relationship is. Because while, yes, profound memory loss definitely changes personality and how someone functions, these cases often show us what does endure. Even when the explicit memories, the facts and events, are severely damaged, things like emotional responses might remain quite consistent, or a familiar sense of humor, deeply ingrained habits or ways of being. It suggests that while memory is obviously crucial for building our conscious story, our narrative identity, there might be these deeper, more implicit layers to the self, less tied to specific things we remember, almost like the basic operating system underneath all the apps.
And this fluidity, this changing nature, isn't just about loss or damage. It's also about what the sources beautifully call the gift of forgetfulness and grace. Sometimes letting go of painful memories, or at least allowing their sharp edges to soften, that can be a real act of inner kindness, right? An act of renewal. It lets us move on. It ties into this idea of healing as reauthoring our inner stories. Think about it. If you used to see yourself only as someone who always failed, you can consciously choose to rewrite that narrative, not by making stuff up, but by actively recalling the small victories, the moments of resilience you forgot, the times you got back up. It's like you're shifting the emphasis, like changing the lighting on a photograph. The scene is the same, but you highlight different things. And that's the magic of memory, isn't it? It doesn't show us who we were. It gives us the brush to paint who we're becoming. It's this active, creative thing happening right now.
Which brings us neatly to this ancient puzzle, but one that feels incredibly relevant today. Our sources point to the ship of Theseus. Yeah, you know the one? Imagine this old wooden ship.
And over many years, plank by plank, every single piece of wood is replaced. Eventually, none of the original material is left. So the question is it still the same ship? It's a paradox that really makes us question what identity, continuity, and change really mean. Not just for ships, obviously, but for us.
Exactly. And it's not just some dusty old philosophical game. It connects directly to us, to human identity. Think about it. Pretty much every cell in your body regenerates over time. I mean, by the time you're an adult, almost every single cell has been replaced at least once, many much faster. And at the same time, our minds are constantly being reshaped by new experiences, learning, relationships. So the big question is, are we the same person we were 5, 10, 20 years ago? We're constantly changing biologically, that cellular turnover, plus aging, just evolving physically, emotionally, intellectually. Our actual components are always being swapped out, just like the planks on Theseus' ship. So what makes us the same person through all that time? It's a fundamental puzzle.
Right, so the paradox kind of forces us to ask, well, what defines our identity through all this change? Is it material continuity? Like, identity is somehow tied to our physical stuff, even if it's always being replaced. Or maybe it's functional continuity, where identity lies in having an ongoing purpose, or a consistent story we tell ourselves, or just the continuous journey itself, regardless of the physical bits. Or is it something deeper? An intangible essence, like a soul maybe, something metaphysical that stays put while everything else swirls around it. And this really hits home when you think about someone who's gone through massive change, maybe through trauma and recovery or a huge spiritual awakening or even just getting a profound education. Are they still themselves? Or has someone genuinely new emerged? It's not just abstract, is it? We feel this in our own lives sometimes.
For sure. And this paradox isn't just about us or ancient ships. It pops up in the digital age, too, which makes it feel even more current. Like, think about advanced AI systems. If their core algorithms get updated and replaced over time, is it still the same AI? Or a new version entirely? Or even just our digital avatars online? People constantly update profiles, change their online personas, curate new identities. Does some core identity stick? Or are we creating new digital selves with every major update? It just reminds us that identity, whether it's human or digital or whatever, it's inherently dynamic.
Yeah.
And maybe a bit slippery.
So yeah, what does this all mean? Where does this leave us? In this deep dive, we've seen that memory isn't just looking back. It's actively building who we are right now, reshaping our identity. We've touched on how tough experiences like trauma can feel like they fracture the self, but also how there are ways back, pathways to retrieval, to healing. We've wondered about this idea of an essence, something deeper than memory, maybe an intangible core that remains. And we've wrestled with that ship of Theseus problem. How do we stay amidst constant, ongoing change, always rebuilding?
Yeah, what's really striking, or maybe it'd be a bit unsettling at first, but ultimately kind of liberating, it's that memory is clearly not this fixed archive. It's dynamic, it's reconstructing,
Yeah.
always in motion. And while that might shake our sense of having a totally fixed, stable self, it also opens up huge possibilities, doesn't it? For growth, for changing our relationship with the past, for consciously choosing who we want to become, which really raises a crucial question for everyone listening.
It really does. And maybe that's the question to take with you from this deep dive. For you, listening right now, what's one memory you hold, one that you feel really shaped how you see yourself? And then think honestly, how has that story you're telling of that memory maybe shifted or evolved over time? Maybe take a quiet moment sometime this week. Revisit that memory, but don't just see it as a historical fact. See it as a living piece of your identity. Ask yourself, what did that moment teach me back then? And maybe even more importantly, what do I want it to teach me now? Because ultimately, maybe we are the stories we choose to remember, the stories we keep reshaping, and the ones we're still learning how to tell.